Have you ever felt lost in the world of IAM? Too many terms, too many tools. You are not alone. We will fix that today together. You can get my complete practice test link in the description or at the first comment of this video with a discount coupon for the complete practice questions. These questions come with full explanations, which will help you get your certification on the first try. Section 1. The core of identity and access management. What is identity and access management? We call it IAM for short. Think of it as the digital bouncer for your company. It decides who gets in and what they can do once they're inside. Without IAM, your data is just sitting there with the door wide open. IAM makes sure only the right people have the right keys. It is the foundation of your security. The identity lifecycle. Every identity has a life. It starts with a hire. We call the joiner. Then, the person changes roles. That is the mover. Finally, they leave the company. That is the leaver. A good IAM system handles all these stages smoothly. If we forget to turn off access for a leaver, that is a huge risk. We must manage the identity from start to finish. Authentication versus authorization. These two words sound similar, but they are different. Authentication is about proving who you are. You show your ID card. Authorization is about what you can do once you are inside. You have the badge, but can you enter the server room? Authentication is the who, and authorization is the what. You need both to be secure. The principle of least privilege. This is a rule you must remember. Give users only the access they need to do their job, nothing more. If a user only needs to read a file, do not give them permission to delete it. This stops mistakes from turning into big problems. If an account gets hacked, the hacker gets only that small amount of access. It limits the damage. Access control models. We have different ways to set rules. Discretionary access control, DAC, lets the owner decide who gets in. Mandatory access control, MAC, uses labels set by the system. Role-based access control, RBAC, is the most common. You give permissions to a role, like manager, and then you put people into that role. It is clean and easy to manage. Identity governance and administration, IGA. This is about the rules and policies. It is not just about setting access, but also checking it. IGA makes sure access is compliant with laws. It includes things like access reviews. Managers get a list every month. Does John still need this access? If they say no, the access is gone. It keeps us clean and audit ready. Common IAM protocols. We need ways for systems to talk about identity. SAML is used for web browsers. It lets you log into one site and get into another. OAuth is for giving permission. It uses tokens, not passwords. OpenID Connect, OIDC, is built on OAuth and adds authentication. LDAP is a directory protocol, like a phonebook for your users. Knowing these is key for the exam. Directories. Where do we store all this identity data? Usually in a directory. Active Directory, AD, from Microsoft is the big one. It stores users, computers, and printers. Azure AD, now Entra ID, is the cloud version. We also have LDAP directories like OpenLDAP. A directory is your source of truth. If it is not in the directory, it does not exist. Privileged Access Management, PAM. Some users have special keys. These are admins. If a hacker gets an admin key, the game is over. PAM protects those keys. It does not let admins use their daily account for admin work. They have to check out a special admin account. It logs everything they do. It keeps the crown jewels safe. Multi-factor authentication, MFA. Passwords alone are not enough. People use password 123 inches all the time. MFA adds a second layer. It is something you know, password, something you have, phone, or something you are, fingerprint. When you log in, you must give 2 of these. It stops 99% of password attacks. It is a must-have today. Single sign-on, SSO. Users hate remembering 20 passwords. SSO fixes that. You log in once, and you get into all your apps. It is convenient for the user. It is safer for IT because we only have to protect one login. We use protocols like SAML and OIDC to make this happen. Happy users mean less help desk calls. Role-based access control, RBAC, deep dive. I want to spend more time on RBAC because it is so important. You create a role called sales representative. You give that role access to the CRM and the email list. Now, when you hire a new sales rep, you just add him to that role. They get everything they need in one click. When they leave, you remove them from the role. It is efficient and consistent. Attribute-based access control, ABAC. Sometimes RBAC is not enough. ABAC uses attributes. Attributes are like tags. You have a resource, a file, tagged confidential. You have a user with a tag, US employee. You have an environment tag, OFFICE hours. The policy says, if user is US employee and time is 9 to 5, allow access. It is very flexible for complex situations. Just in time, JIT, access. Sometimes we do not want access sitting there forever. JIT gives access only when it is needed. A developer needs admin access for 1 hour to fix a bug. They request it, get approved, and it goes away after 1 hour. It follows the principle of least privilege perfectly. No standing privileges. Auditing and reporting. How do we know if our IAM is working? We audit. We look at logs. Who logged in? When did they log in? Did anyone try to access something they should not? Reports are proof of work. If a breach happens, the audit log is the first thing the investigators look at. You must keep logs safe and tamper-proof. Identity proofing. When you create a new identity, how do you know the person is real? You need proofing. This means checking a government ID. Maybe you do a video call to match the face. Maybe you verify a phone number. You are making sure the digital identity is tied to a real human. If you mess this up, you let a fake person in. Federation. Federation is trust between companies. Your company trusts Google to log you in. When you click Sign in with Google, that is federation. Your company and Google share trust using certificates. Your identity lives at Google, but you access your work tools. It is convenient for partners and customers. Risk-based authentication, RBA. This is smart security. If you log in from your home OFFICE at 9 a.m., it is low risk. If you log in from a different country at 3 a.m., it is high risk. RBA checks the risk. If the risk is high, it asks for MFA or blocks the login. It balances security and user experience. It does not bother users when things look normal. 18 practice questions. 1. What is the main goal of the identity lifecycle management? To manage access from hire to termination, ensuring proper access at each stage. We track the joiner, mover, and leaver process to keep access rights aligned with job status. 2. Which access control model lets the data owner set permissions? Discretionary access control, DAC. In DAC, the owner of the file or resource decides who gets access and what they can do. 3. What is the difference between authentication and authorization? Authentication verifies identity, while authorization verifies permissions to resources. Authentication asks, "Who are you?" and authorization asks, "Are you allowed to do this?" 4. Why is the principle of least privilege important? It limits access to only what is needed, reducing risk if an account is compromised. By giving minimal permissions, we stop attackers from moving around inside our systems. 5. What is the purpose of a directory service like Active Directory? To store and organize user information, resources, and access policies in a central place. It acts as a central phonebook and security hub for all users and devices. 6. Which protocol is commonly used for web-based single sign-on, SSO? SAML, Security Assertion Markup Language. SAML exchanges authentication data between an identity provider and a service provider. 7. What does multi-factor authentication, MFA, add to security? It adds a second layer of verification beyond just a password. MFA combines something you know, have, or are to make account takeover much harder. 8. What is the main focus of Privileged Access Management, PAM? To secure and monitor accounts with high-level administrative access. PAM protects the keys to the kingdom by controlling and logging admin sessions. 9. In role-based access control, RBAC, what is a role? A collection of permissions tied to a job function within the organization. Instead of assigning permissions to users, we assign them to roles and then assign users to roles. 10. When would you use attribute-based access control, ABAC, over RBAC? When access decisions require dynamic conditions like time, location, or data sensitivity. ABAC uses policies with attributes to handle complex, real-time situations. 11. What is just-in-time, JIT, access? Access that is granted for a specific task and revoked immediately after. JIT reduces standing privileges by giving temporary access only when work requires it. 12. Why are audit logs critical for IAM? They provide a record of who accessed what and when for security reviews. Logs help us detect suspicious activity and prove compliance during audits. 13. What is identity proofing? The process of verifying a person's real-world identity before creating a digital account. We make sure the person is who they claim to be by checking official documents. 14. How does federation work between companies? It establishes trust so one company accepts the identity managed by another. Federation uses standards like SAML to allow users to log in across organizational boundaries. 15. What triggers risk-based authentication, RBA, to ask for extra verification? Anomalies in the login attempt, such as unusual location or device. RBA analyzes context to decide if the login is safe or needs a challenge. 16. What is the risk of forgetting to deprovision a leaver? A former employee retains access to company systems and data. This creates a security gap where a terminated user could still cause damage. 17. What does OAuth 2.0 primarily handle? Authorization, allowing one application to access another on behalf of a user. OAuth gives out tokens for delegated access without sharing passwords. 18. What is the benefit of single sign-on, SSO, for the IT help desk? It reduces password reset requests, freeing up time for other tasks. With fewer passwords to manage, users forget their credentials less often. End of section 1. We covered the big rocks. Lifecycle, RBAC, MFA, and the core concepts. This is your foundation. Keep practicing these ideas. Please leave suggestions in the comment section to improve my videos. And don't forget to subscribe. You can get the full course and practice questions in the description below. Good luck with your study. Section 2. Identity Governance, Administration and Protocols. What is identity governance? Governance is about control and oversight. It is the rulebook for identity. You set policies, who gets what, and who approves it. Then you check that everyone is following the rules. Think of it as the audit team for access. Without governance, access becomes a mess. People keep old permissions they do not need. Governance cleans that up. Access requests and approvals. Users should not just get access because they ask nicely. There must be a process. A user submits a request. Their manager or a system owner approves it. The approval is logged. Then the access is given automatically. This creates a clear chain of accountability. If something goes wrong, we know who approved it. Access reviews, recertification. This is a big part of governance. Every few months, managers get a list. It shows every access right their team members have. The manager reviews each one. They ask, does this person still need this? If no, they revoke it. This keeps access clean. It is also a key part of passing audits. Regulators love to see access reviews. Segregation of duties, SOD. This is a control to stop fraud. One person should not have too much power. For example, the same person should not be able to create a vendor and also pay that vendor. SOD policies spot these risky combinations. If a user tries to get both roles, the system blocks it. or it forces an exception approval. It is all about checks and balances. Entitlements and permissions. An entitlement is a specific right. It could be a group membership, a file share access, or a role. Permissions are the building blocks. If you have too many entitlements, it is hard to manage. The goal is to package entitlements into neat roles. Then you assign the role, not the individual entitlements. It keeps things tidy. Joiner, mover, leaver process. We talked about this before, but let us go deeper. For a joiner, we create the account and give standard access. For a mover, we remove old access and add new access based on the new role. For a leaver, we disable or delete the account. Automation makes this fast. If you do it manually, mistakes happen. A leaver might still have access months later. Automation in IAM. Manual work is slow and error-prone. Automation helps. When HR says a person is hired, IAM creates the account. When HR says they are terminated, IAM disables it. No human has to click a button. Automation reduces delay. It also reduces the chance of someone forgetting to do it. It is faster and safer. Service accounts. Not all accounts are for people. Service accounts are for applications. They let software talk to other software. These accounts often have high privileges. But no one logs into them daily. They become a risk if the password never changes. Good governance treats service accounts with care. It rotates their passwords and monitors their usage. Identity warehouses and analytics. We collect a lot of data about identities. We can use this data to find problems. Analytics can show who has too much access. It can show who never uses their access. It can even spot a user logging in from a strange location. An identity warehouse stores all this data. Then we use analytics to make smarter decisions. SAML Deep Dive. SAML is an XML-based standard. It moves authentication data between an identity provider, IDP, and a service provider, SP. The user logs into the IDP. The IDP sends a SAML assertion to the SP. That assertion says, this user is who they say they are. The user never gives their password to the SP. It is very secure for web apps. OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect, OIDC. OAuth 2.0 is for authorization. It gives out access tokens. For example, a photo app wants to access your Google Photos. You approve, and OAuth gives a token to the app. The app uses that token to get your photos. OpenID Connect, OIDC, sits on top of OAuth. It adds an ID token that contains user profile info. Together, they do both authentication and authorization. SCIM, System for Cross-Domain Identity Management. SCIM is a standard for automating user provisioning. When you create a user in your IDP, SCIM pushes that user to all your SaaS apps. It creates the user there too. It also handles updates and deletes. This keeps identities consistent across all your tools. No more manually creating accounts in Salesforce or OFFICE. 365. LDAP and Active Directory. LDAP is the protocol. It is used to talk to directories. Active Directory, AD, uses LDAP. You query AD with LDAP to find a user or a group. AD is more than just LDAP. It includes Kerberos for authentication and group policy for settings. Entra ID, formerly Azure AD, is cloud-based. It does not use LDAP the same way. It uses REST APIs. Kerberos authentication. Kerberos is a network authentication protocol. It uses tickets. You log in once and get a ticket granting ticket, TGT. Then you use the TGT to get service tickets for specific servers. Your password never travels over the network. It is very secure. Windows domains use Kerberos by default. It is fast and reliable. Federation and trust. Federation is about linking identity domains. Two companies agree to trust each other's identities. They exchange metadata and certificates. When a user from Company A wants to access Company B's app, Company B asks Company A to verify the user. Company A sends a signed assertion. No new password is created. It is seamless for the user. Identity provider, IDP, and service provider, SP. In Federation, the IDP is the one that stores the passwords and authenticates the user. The sulfur monophosphide is the app or service the user wants to use. In SSO, the IDP is like the central gatekeeper. The SP trusts the IDP. When you use log in with Google, Google is the IDP, and the website is the SP. Session management. When a user logs in, a session starts. The session keeps them logged in as they move between pages. If the session lasts forever, it is a risk. We need timeouts. An idle timeout logs the user out after they stop using the app. An absolute timeout forces a new login after a set number of hours. Both protect against unauthorized use. Privileged account types. We have different kinds of privileged accounts. Domain admins control the whole network. Local admins control a single computer. Application admins control a specific app. Emergency accounts, break glass, are for when everything else fails. Each type needs its own controls. PAM solutions often manage all of them with different policies. Compliance and regulations. IAM helps meet legal rules. GDPR says you must protect personal data. HIPAA says healthcare data needs strict access controls. SOX requires segregation of duties for financial systems. Auditors check your IAM processes. If you do not have good IAM, you can get fined. Good IAM is not just security, it is a legal requirement. 18 Practice Questions, Section 2. 1. What is the main purpose of an access review or recertification? To verify that current access rights are still appropriate for each user. Managers review permissions and remove any that are no longer needed for the job. 2. Why is segregation of duties, SOD, important? It prevents a single user from having conflicting permissions that could enable fraud. SOD splits sensitive tasks so that no one person can complete a fraudulent transaction alone. 3. What is an entitlement in IAM? A specific access right or privilege, such as a group membership or application role. Entitlements are the building blocks of access that we assign to users or roles. 4. How does automation help the joiner-mover-leaver process? It creates, updates, or disables accounts automatically based on HR data. Automation removes manual steps, making the process faster and reducing errors. 5. What is a service account? An account used by an application or system, not by a human user. Service accounts allow software to interact with other software securely. Six. What is the role of an identity provider, IDP, in SAML? The IDP authenticates the user and sends a SAML assertion to the service provider. The IDP holds the user's credentials and vouchers for their identity to other apps. 7. What does OAuth 2.0 use instead of a password to grant access? It uses an access token that is issued after user consent. Tokens are short-lived and scoped, reducing the risk of sharing credentials. 8. What is the main function of SCIM? To automate the provisioning and deprovisioning of users across cloud applications. SCIM keeps user identities consistent between an IDP and multiple SaaS apps. 9. How does Kerberos protect passwords during authentication? It never sends the password over the network. It uses encrypted tickets instead. The user's password is used locally to decrypt a ticket, keeping it safe from network sniffing. 10. In federation, what establishes trust between an IDP and an SP? Exchange of metadata and digital certificates. Metadata contains endpoints and signing keys so each side can verify the other. 11. What is the difference between an idle timeout and an absolute timeout? Idle timeout logs out inactive users. Absolute timeout forces a new login after a fixed time. Both controls limit session length to reduce risk from forgotten or stolen sessions. 12. Why do we need privileged access management, PAM, for domain admins? Domain admins have control over the entire network, so their accounts must be tightly secured. PAM adds controls like just-in-time access and session recording for high-risk accounts. 13. What is a break glass or emergency account? A highly privileged account that is only used when normal access methods fail. It is kept offline or under strict control and its use is heavily monitored. 14. Which regulation requires segregation of duties for financial systems? Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX. SOX mandates internal controls over financial reporting, including access controls. 15. What happens during a leaver process when automation is used? The user's accounts are automatically disabled or deleted when HR records termination. This ensures access is removed immediately, preventing lingering exposure. 16. What is the benefit of packaging entitlements into roles? It simply fees access management by assigning roles instead of individual permissions. Roles make it easier to onboard users and maintain consistent access. 17. How does an access request approval log help accountability? It records who approved each access request, creating an audit trail. If access is misused, we can trace back to who authorized it. 18. What is a common risk if service account passwords are never rotated? An attacker who steals the password could use it for a long time without detection. Regular rotation limits the window of opportunity for misuse. Section 3. Advanced Access Controls, PAM, and Identity Security. Digging deeper into RBAC. We know roles make life easier. But roles can get messy too. Role explosion happens when you have too many roles. Every tiny permission becomes a role. Then you have hundreds of roles. No one knows what each one does. The fix is to design roles based on job functions, not on individual permissions. Keep roles broad enough to cover a whole job. Role mining. How do you know what roles to create? You look at existing access. Role mining is the process. You collect all the permissions users have today. Then you find patterns. You see that all salespeople have access to the CRM. That becomes a role. It is a data-driven way to build your RBAC model. It cleans up the mess you already have. Access certification campaigns. We talked about access reviews. But running them well is a skill. You set up a campaign. You pick which users and which access to review. You send reminders to managers. You track who finished and who did not. If a manager does not respond, you may have to revoke access or escalate. A good campaign runs smoothly and finishes on time. Policy-based access control, PBAC. PBAC is a newer way of thinking. You write a policy in plain language. Only US employees can access this file during business hours. The system enforces it. It is like ABAC but more focused on business rules. PBAC makes it easier for business people to understand access rules. They do not need to know technical details. Zero Trust and Identity. Zero Trust is a security model. It says, trust no one, verify everyone. Even if you are inside the network, you must prove yourself. Identity is the core of Zero Trust. Every request is treated as if it comes from an open network. You authenticate, authorize, and encrypt every time. No more assuming that inside the OFFICE is safe. Continuous authentication. Old way, you log in once and you are trusted all day. New way, the system keeps checking. It looks at behavior. Are you typing the same way? Are you accessing the same files? If something changes, it asks for MFA again. It is like a security guard walking around all day, not just at the front door. Adaptive access control. This is another name for risk-based authentication. But it goes further. It can change what you are allowed to do based on risk. If you are on a new device, maybe you can only read, not write. If you are in the OFFICE, maybe you get full access. The system adapts to the situation. It makes security smart and flexible. Privileged account discovery. You cannot protect what you do not know. Many organizations have hidden admin accounts. A former IT guy still has a back door. Privileged account discovery finds these hidden accounts. It scans your systems for accounts with high privileges. Then you can bring them under management. This is often the first step in a PAM project. Session recording and monitoring. When an admin uses a privileged account, you should watch. Session recording captures everything they do. It is like a video of their screen. If something goes wrong, you can replay the session. You can see exactly what happened. This stops malicious admins. It also helps with troubleshooting. What did you type right before the server crashed? Just in time, JIT, administration. This is a step beyond JIT access. Instead of giving a privileged account, you give a time-bound elevation. A developer runs a command with admin rights for 15 minutes. Then it drops back to normal. They never get a permanent admin account. This is the safest way to handle privileged tasks. It is getting more common in modern IAM. Secrets management. Privileged accounts have passwords, but also API keys, certificates, and tokens. These are called secrets. Secrets management is about storing them safely. You use a vault like HashiCorp Vault or Azure Key Vault. Applications get secrets from the vault when they need them. They never store secrets in code or config files. This stops secret leaks. Identity Threat Detection and Response, ITDR. IAM is not just about setting access. It is also about detecting attacks. ITDR is a new focus. It watches identity systems for signs of compromise. Are there too many? Failed logins. Is an account being used from 2 locations at once? ITDR tools alert you and can block the attack. It is like an antivirus for your identity layer. Passwordless authentication. Passwords are a headache. Users hate them. Hackers love them. Passwordless removes them. You use a biometric like a fingerprint or a hardware key like a YubiKey. You might get a push notification to your phone. The user does not type a password at all. It is more secure and more convenient. The industry is moving this way. FIDO2 and WebAuthn. FIDO2 is the standard behind passwordless. WebAuthn is the browser API. When you register a hardware key, the site saves a public key. You sign in by proving you have the private key. The private key never leaves your device. It stops phishing completely. Even if you click a fake login page, the key will not work because the site URL is wrong. Identity analytics and AI. We have tons of identity data. AI can find patterns humans miss. It can spot a user whose access is growing too fast. It can find orphaned accounts that no one uses. It can predict who might be a risk. Analytics helps you make better decisions. Instead of reacting to problems, you prevent them. Orphaned accounts. When a user leaves, their account should be disabled. But sometimes it is not. Or it gets left behind in one app. That is an orphaned account. No one owns it, but it still has access. Attackers love orphaned accounts. They are like unlocked doors. Good governance includes regular cleanup of orphaned accounts. Toxic combinations. This is a term from segregation of duties. A toxic combination is a set of permissions that, if held by one person, creates a risk. For example, the ability to create a user and the ability to assign that user a high privilege. If one person has both, they can create a fake admin. SOD policies detect these toxic combinations. User Entity Behavior Analytics, UEBA. UEBA looks at how users and devices behave. It builds a baseline. When something deviates, it raises an alert. A user who never works at night suddenly logs in at 3 a.m. A server that never talks to a certain IP suddenly does. UEBA finds these anomalies. It helps catch insider threats and compromised accounts. Lifecycle management for non-employees. Not all users are employees. You have contractors, partners, and vendors. They need access too, but their lifecycle is different. A contractor may be hired for 3 months. Their access should expire automatically. They may not have a manager in your company. So you need different workflows for non-employees. Treat them as first-class identities but with shorter lifespans. Identity as a Service, IDaaS. IDaaS is IAM delivered from the cloud. You do not run your own directory servers. You subscribe to a service like Okta, Microsoft Entra ID, or OAuth 0. They handle uptime, scaling, and security patches. For many companies, this is easier and cheaper. It also gives you SSO and MFA without building it yourself. 18 Practice Questions, Section 3. 1. What is role explosion in RBAC? When too many fine-grained roles are created, making the model hard to manage. Role explosion happens when roles are created for every small permission instead of grouping by job function. 2. What is role mining? Analyzing existing user permissions to discover patterns and define standard roles. Role mining uses data from current access to build an efficient RBAC structure. 3. How does a typical access certification campaign work? Managers review a list of user access rights and approve or revoke each one. Campaigns run on a schedule to ensure regular recertification of access. 4. What is the core idea behind Zero Trust security? Never trust any request by default. Always verify based on identity and context. Zero Trust removes the assumption that internal network traffic is safe. 5. What is continuous authentication? Constantly validating a user's identity based on behavior throughout the session. It checks for anomalies like unusual typing patterns or location changes after login. 6. What does privileged account discovery accomplish? It finds all accounts with elevated permissions that are not yet managed. Discovery is the first step to bring hidden admin accounts under PAM control. 7. Why is session recording important for privileged accounts? It captures admin actions for audit, troubleshooting, and detecting misuse. Recordings provide a clear trail of what was done during a privileged session. 8. What is just-in-time, JIT, administration? Granting temporary elevated rights only for the duration of a specific task. JIT eliminates standing admin privileges by elevating only when needed. 9. What is a secrets management vault used for? Storing and controlling access to passwords, API keys, and certificates. A vault keeps secrets secure and allows applications to retrieve them on demand. 10. What is the goal of Identity Threat Detection and Response, ITDR? To detect and stop attacks targeting identity systems and compromised accounts. ITDR adds security monitoring specifically for the IAM infrastructure. 11. How does passwordless authentication using FIDO2 stop phishing? The cryptographic key is tied to the website's origin, so fake sites cannot use it. WebAuthn checks the URL, making phishing attempts ineffective. 12. What is an orphaned account? A user account that remains active after the person has left the organization. Orphaned accounts are security risks because no one manages them. 13. What are toxic combinations in segregation of duties? Sets of permissions that together create a high risk of fraud or error. SOD policies detect and prevent users from holding these dangerous combinations. 14. What does User Entity Behavior Analytics, UEBA, detect? Anomalous behavior that may indicate a compromised account or insider threat. UEBA establishes baselines and flags deviations like unusual login times. 15. Why do non-employees like contractors need special lifecycle management? Their employment period is limited and they may not have a direct manager in the company. Non-employee workflows often include automatic expiration dates. 16. What is Identity as a Service, IDaaS? A cloud-based delivery model for IAM capabilities like SSO, MFA, and provisioning. IDaaS providers manage the infrastructure so customers focus on policies. 17. How does Adaptive Access Control adjust permissions? It changes what a user can do based on risk level of the current session. For example, a high-risk session might allow only read access. 18. What is a common risk when service accounts have permanent standing privileges? If compromised, the attacker retains long-term access without needing to re-authenticate. Standing privileges increase the blast radius of a service account compromise. End of Section 3. We covered advanced access models, PAM best practices, and how identity security is evolving. These topics are key for the CIDPRO exam. Keep reviewing and testing yourself. Please leave suggestions in the comment section to improve my videos. And don't forget to subscribe. You can get the full course and practice questions in the description below. You are doing great. Stay with me. Section 4. IAM Architecture, Implementation, and Cloud Identity. Building an IAM architecture. Before you buy tools, you need a plan. Architecture is the blueprint. It shows how identities flow. It shows where users log in. It shows which systems hold the truth. A good architecture is scalable. It grows with the company. It is also resilient. If one piece fails, the rest keeps working.